The video still lived on Instagram, me in my gardening clothes, being escorted out by 2 security guards while Madison Grant Thompson, formerly just Madison Grant, Instagram model, narrated from behind her phone. "This is what happens when the help refuses to leave," she'd said, her designer sunglasses catching the sunlight. "Some people just can't accept when they've been replaced." I watched it again in my temporary corporate apartment, 15 stories above the city where I'd lost everything 6 months ago. The comments under the video were still active. "Savage Queen," and "Show that old bag who's boss." Old bag, I was 39. "Ms. Sullivan." My assistant's voice came through the intercom. "The board is ready for your first meeting as CEO." I smoothed down my Armani suit, a far cry from the dirt-stained jeans I'd worn that day in the garden. The garden I had planted, tended, and grown for 15 years while Robert built his law practice. The garden Madison had already torn out to install a more Instagram-worthy infinity pool. Coming Rachel. I took one last look at the video before clicking on Madison's profile. She was still living her best life, posting daily updates from my former home. Today's post showed her preparing for her monthly A Light Wives Brunch, an exclusive gathering where the wives of the city's most powerful men sipped mimosas and plotted social coups. The same brunch where, 6 months ago, Madison had announced that Robert was serving me with divorce papers. I found out about the end of my marriage along with everyone else, via Instagram Live. The boardroom of Lux Living Properties fell silent as I entered. These men had expected Robert Thompson's first wife to be exactly what Madison had portrayed in her video, a shabby, desperate woman clinging to her past. Instead, they got me, Harvard MBA, silent partner in Robert's now thriving law firm, and the woman who had just orchestrated the biggest property management acquisition in the city's history. "Gentlemen," I said, taking my seat at the head of the table, "let's discuss our new direction." "Mrs. Thompson," one of the older board members began. "Ms. Sullivan," I corrected smoothly, "and yes, Mr. Peters, I am that Mrs. Thompson, the one from the viral video. Now, shall we discuss how I acquired controlling interest in your company while you were all busy laughing at that video?" The room shifted uncomfortably. They'd all seen it, of course. Some of their wives had even been at that brunch, sipping champagne while Madison detailed my supposed failures as a wife. "Your ex-husband's firm handles most of our legal work," another board member pointed out. This could be seen as a conflict of interest. I smiled, pulling out a folder. "Funny you should mention that. Given that I was a silent partner in the firm for 12 years, handling most of their real estate acquisitions, I'd say I'm uniquely qualified to manage this transition." I paused, letting that sink in. "Unless you prefer, I take my controlling shares to your competitors." The room fell silent again, but this time with a different energy. These men hadn't built their fortunes by backing losing horses. Now, I continued, "Let's discuss the Riverside Heights property portfolio, particularly the mansion at 1257 Elite Circle. My former home. The one Madison was currently redecorating with Robert's money earned during years when I had supported his career, managed his clients, and built his reputation. The Grant Thompson residence." Peters looked confused. "They're our highest profile tenants." "Yes, about that." I pulled up Madison's latest Instagram story on the boardroom screen. "It seems Mrs. Grant Thompson has made some unauthorized structural changes. That infinity pool, not approved by the housing board. Those smart home modifications, they violate at least 3 safety codes. Robert Thompson would never allow." "Robert Thompson doesn't own that house." "We do. And as CEO, I'm implementing a new policy of strict code enforcement." I smiled, picturing Madison's face when she received the violation notices, starting with our most visible residents. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. "We need to talk about Madison's brunch today. Some wives cancel last minute. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" I ignored it, focusing on the board. "I've prepared a complete overhaul of our property management strategy. You'll find I have extensive experience in both real estate law and luxury property development." "Experience you gained working with your ex-husband," someone muttered. "Experience I gained building an empire he took credit for," I corrected. "Now, about those violation notices." As the meeting progressed, I could see the board's attitude shifting. They had expected a revenge-driven ex-wife. Instead, they got a shrewd businesswoman who knew every aspect of their operation, sometimes better than they did. By the time we finished, 2 hours later, even the most skeptical members were nodding along with my proposals. As they filed out, Peters lingered. "The Thompson residence," he said carefully. "You're not planning anything dramatic." I thought of Madison's video, of her smug face as she watched security lead me away, of Robert's silence as 15 years of marriage ended on social media. "Nothing dramatic," I assured him. "Just ensuring all our properties meet our new elevated standards." I checked my watch. In fact, our inspection team should be arriving at Elite Circle right about. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Madison's name on the screen, along with a string of angry emojis. I let it go to voicemail, imagining her perfect brunch being interrupted by property inspectors armed with violation notices and renovation demands. "You know," Peters said, almost admiringly, "some of us wondered how you managed to acquire controlling interests so quietly. But watching you today," he shook his head. "Robert Thompson was a fool." "No," I corrected, watching another angry text pop up on my phone. "Robert Thompson was a good lawyer who forgot that behind every successful man is a woman who knows where all the bodies are buried." I smiled. "And sometimes she owns the cemetery." As I gathered my things, I pulled up Madison's Instagram one last time. She was still live streaming her brunch, or what was left of it. In the background, I could see men in Lux Living Properties uniforms examining her precious infinity pool. Time to remind everyone that karma, like real estate, was all about location, location, location. The fallout from the property inspection was even more delicious than I'd anticipated. Madison's Instagram story shifted from showing off her elaborate brunch spread to a full meltdown as inspectors methodically documented every unauthorized renovation. "This is harassment." Her voice cracked as she filmed the inspectors measuring her non-regulation pool fence. "Do you know who my husband is?" I watched the drama unfold from my office, sipping the same expensive champagne she had been pouring at her brunch. The difference was I could actually afford it now. "Miss Sullivan?" Rachel appeared at my door. "Mr. Thompson is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about seeing you." "Is he alone?" "Yes. Mrs. Grant Thompson is apparently dealing with some property issues." Rachel's poker face was impeccable, but I caught the slight twitch of her lips. "Send him up in 5 minutes. And Rachel, make sure security is nearby." I used those 5 minutes to pull up the complete file on 1257 Elite Circle. Every modification, every permit violation, every entitled demand Madison had made to the previous management team. Robert had always said my attention to detail was obsessive. He was about to learn it was strategic. When he burst into my office, he looked exactly as he did in court. Expensive suit, perfectly styled hair, and that self-righteous anger he used to intimidate opponents. "What the hell are you playing at, Sarah?" He slammed a violation notice on my desk. 23 code violations, a mandatory pool reconstruction. "This is ridiculous." I picked up the notice calmly. "Actually, it's 27 violations now. Your wife's latest bathroom renovation wasn't properly permitted." I looked up at him. "You really should have read the HOA agreement more carefully, Robert. This is revenge, plain and simple." "No, this is property management. Something I learned quite a bit about while managing your real estate portfolio for 15 years. I smiled. "Remember all those contracts you had me review? All those property laws you had me research? Funny how knowledge accumulates." He sank into the chair across from me, his anger deflating slightly. "What do you want, Sarah?" "Want? I'm just doing my job as CEO, ensuring all our properties meet code requirements, protecting our investors' interests." I pulled up Madison's infamous eviction video on my screen. "Speaking of protecting interests, this violation of our privacy policy is particularly concerning." Privacy policy. The one prohibiting residents from filming security personnel or posting property footage on social media. The one your wife violated when she recorded my eviction. I turned the screen toward him. Section 12. Paragraph 3 of the rental agreement. 3 violations result in automatic lease termination. The color drained from his face. "You can't evict us." "I can, but I won't." I leaned back, enjoying his confusion. "Instead, you have 30 days to bring the property up to code, at your expense, and Madison needs to issue a public apology for her social media violations." "She'll never agree to that." "Then start packing. I hear there's a lovely apartment complex on the other side of town." "Oh wait." I pretended to check my files. We own that too. Robert ran his hands through his perfect hair, messing it up for the first time I could remember. This isn't like you, Sarah. You're not vindictive. No, I'm not. I'm professional. Which is why I'm giving you options instead of having security escort you out while I film it for Instagram. I stood up. Oh, and Robert, the next time you decide to end a marriage, try doing it in person instead of letting your new wife announce it on social media. After he left, Rachel brought in a stack of messages. Mrs. Grant Thompson has called 17 times. She's threatening to contact her social media followers about corporate bullying. Perfect. Have legal prepare a cease and desist letter and send her the social media violation notices. By evening, Madison's Instagram was surprisingly quiet. The only new post was a terse announcement that her Elite Wives Brunch series would be taking a brief hiatus due to unexpected renovations. I was reviewing property proposals when my phone buzzed with a text from an unexpected source, Robert's mother, Eleanor. Just saw the Lux Living Properties announcement. CEO, well played, my dear. Perhaps we could have tea. Eleanor had been surprisingly kind during the divorce, quietly disapproving of how Robert handled things. She'd been the only one who hadn't attended Madison's celebratory brunches. I texted back, the Penthouse restaurant at the Grand tomorrow? I own that building now, too. Her response was immediate. Wouldn't miss it. Shall I bring the photos from Madison's failed modeling career? The ones before all the work? I smiled, remembering why I'd always liked my ex-mother-in-law. The next morning, Madison's latest Instagram story showed her supervising contractors as they began the mandatory renovations. Her designer sundress was splattered with pool water, and her perfect hair was wilting in the heat. Just a minor setback, she assured her followers, though her voice shook slightly. Every queen's castle needs updating sometimes. I sent a follow-up inspection notice, this time for the unauthorized changes to the historical facade. By lunchtime, Robert's name appeared on my calendar for a meeting the following day. Rachel brought in the confirmation. He's requested a private meeting to discuss terms. Should I have security on standby again? No need. I looked out my window at the city skyline, my skyline now. I think he's finally ready to negotiate like a professional. On my desk, next to the property reports and violation notices, sat a small framed photo. It showed a younger me in the garden of 1257 Elite Circle, proudly holding up our first homegrown tomatoes. Robert had taken that picture back when he still saw me as a partner rather than a possession. Madison had thrown that photo out during the eviction. She hadn't realized I'd kept digital copies of everything: documents, photos, contracts, every piece of evidence showing how I'd helped build Robert's success. Now, as I prepare for tomorrow's meeting, I added one more document to the pile: a comprehensive proposal for bringing 1257 Elite Circle up to code, including a social media compliance clause. Let Madison keep her castle for now. I had something better. I had an empire. Tea with Eleanor proved enlightening. Between delicate sips of Earl Grey, she revealed the cracks in Madison and Robert's perfect facade. She's bankrupting him with those renovations, Eleanor confided, sliding several photos across the table. And these are from her modeling days in Vegas. Before the extensive surgeries, of course. I studied the images but didn't take them. I'm not interested in destroying her, Eleanor. Just teaching a lesson about consequences. Darling, you already have. Eleanor's eyes twinkled. Hafford Elite Wives Group has quietly inquired about transferring their rental agreements to other properties. No one wants to be associated with someone who's violated the social code. The irony wasn't lost on me. Madison had once orchestrated my social exile. Now her carefully curated circle was deserting her. Robert's meeting the next day started differently than expected. He looked tired, his usual courtroom confidence notably absent. Madison's influencer contracts are being canceled, he said without preamble. Apparently, luxury brands don't want to be associated with someone involved in a property dispute. How unfortunate. I kept my voice neutral. I assume that's affecting her contribution to the renovation costs. He flinched. Sarah, we both know what you're doing. Name your real price. I already did. Bring the property up to code and have Madison apologize publicly for her social media violations. I paused, though I'm adding one condition: joint custody of the garden. The garden? He looked confused. The one I spent 15 years creating. the one she destroyed for her infinity pool. I met his eyes. Replace it, and I'll allow reasonable payment terms for the renovations. You want your garden back. I want what I built, respected Robert, something you used to understand. He was quiet for a long moment. I forgot a lot of things I used to understand. The changes began gradually. The construction crews arrived to restore the garden first, working from detailed plans I kept. Madison's Instagram stayed surprisingly quiet except for a brief, carefully worded apology for any distress caused by previous social media posts. Then came the most surprising post of all. Madison in casual clothes and minimal makeup, actually working in the restored garden. Learning about sustainable living from the garden's original designer, she captioned it, "Sometimes new beginnings require acknowledging past mistakes." Eleanor called me immediately. She's trying to save her influencer career by rebranding as authentic and growth-minded. Clever girl. But something felt different about this post. Maybe it was the lack of designer labels or the genuine dirt under her manicured nails. When she requested a meeting, I agreed. She arrived at my office looking more like the girl in Eleanor's old photos than the polished social media queen. I was wrong, she said simply, not just about the garden or the renovations. About everything. Everything. Asterisk, I thought being Robert Thompson's wife was about showing off. About proving I was better than. She hesitated. Better than his ex-wife. But watching you these past months, seeing how you build all this. She gestured at my office. I realized I've been playing at success while you were actually achieving it. I study her carefully, and this revelation has nothing to do with your declining social media engagement. It has everything to do with it, she smiled wryly. Turns out, being the villain in someone else's success story isn't great for the brand. 2 weeks later, I visited the garden for the first time since my eviction. It was smaller than before, sharing space with a more modest pool, but the bones were there. My old roses were blooming again. Madison was there, actually learning about composting from the gardener I'd sent. She looked up as I approached, her designer clothes replaced by practical gardening wear. "The tomatoes are coming in," she said, gesturing to the vegetable beds. Though not as well as in that old photo. I looked at her sharply. She pulled out the framed photo I'd lost during the eviction. "Found this while we were renovating. Thought you might want it back." Robert was there too, keeping a respectful distance as I walked through my old garden. He looked different somehow, more like the man who had once taken that photo of me with my tomatoes. "We got it all wrong," he said quietly. "Both of us." I touched a blooming rose, one I had planted 15 years ago. Sometimes things need to be broken down to grow back stronger. As I left, I heard Madison asking the gardener about starting a community garden program. Her Instagram later showed the planning stages with none of her usual filters or staged poses. Eleanor texted me that evening. "Quite the transformation. Though I'm keeping those Vegas photos, just in case." I smiled, looking out from my penthouse at the city below. My empire wasn't built on revenge after all, but on something more powerful, the ability to transform destruction into growth. In my garden at 1257 Elite Circle, the roses were blooming again, stronger than before. Sometimes I realized the best revenge isn't about tearing someone down, but about teaching them how to grow.